Welcome to everybody!
Party! We're back, and we're more obnoxious than ever. And this week, or this month, or this year, we've got a special guest, Jim Murphy, old Alva skater. Now he's doing great stuff with Juice Magazine. He's doing great stuff with Montana
Stained Glass.
Stained Glass. He's doing great stuff with Wounded Knee. So let's have a little conversation with Jim and see what he's got to tell us about, you know, what he's been doing for the last, 35 years, 30, 40 years almost of skateboarding?
Yeah, and Jay, don't forget Zorlac. I was on Zorlac first.
Oh, man.
I love Zorlac. Let's
talk about fucking Zorlac.
That's my favorite brand, brother.
Dude, hey, man, let me tell you something. Before there was Alva, I got on Zorlac. I went down to Jacksonville, Florida for a contest. I met Jeff Newton, Craig Johnson, and John Gibson. And I've been a fan of Gibson since the skateboarder days, seeing him riding Caster and all that. And God, man, people don't understand how underground skateboarding was at that point, like 81, 80, like all our parks were going. It was all backyard ramps. And all of a sudden, Thrasher came out. We started seeing the big boys and Zorlac ads with puss head graphics. Dude, that was the shit. That was so fucking underground and hardcore.
Man,
you got to give props to Zorlac, man.
Yeah, when I hit the scene in the early 80s, that hardcore Texas puss head style was, as a kid in the 80s, man, that was all about it. I worshiped Craig Johnson and John Gibson there for a long time.
Yeah, dude, because I don't know if you remember, but for me, like, we all fell off a cliff after, like, Cherry Hill got dozed. I mean, we had backyard ramps, but we were sitting around going, how the hell did Cherry Hill go away? You'd walk into that warehouse, you see, 4 pools lined up, a half pipe, a 3/4. It was all perfection. It was heaven, man. And you never saw it coming that it was just going to go away. It's crazy. And now it's like, now we see all these parks. Now it's just like, it's like a given you're going to have a skate park, and it's just, I don't know. It's mind blowing. I didn't know if it would ever come back, but I'm amazed that it's back now and it's as strong as it is. And now it's in the Olympics. It's just, I don't know, man. It's crazy.
Well, I can't remember who the quote was. It might've been Tony Hawk or somebody that said, skateboarding doesn't need the Olympics. The Olympics need skateboarding.
Right.
I'm not a fan of it. I mean, I'm going to watch it because it's freaking skateboarding in the Olympics, but I would assume just not have it in there.
It'll get more accepted. We'll get more concrete parks out of it. You know what I mean? And that's the bottom line for me.
And man, you were just saying like this explosion of parks. And, I remember, I guess when our vert ramp got torn down in 88 or 89, there was nothing within 4 or 5 hours of us until late 90s, early 2000s when the park explosion first started. And Jay and I would literally road trip as much as possible hours away to go ride Louisville or, Nashville, I guess was the earliest, closest park. And it was a lot of work for a long time. And then the next thing I know, I look up and, I get to travel for work a lot, and everywhere I went, 8 parks in whatever city I was going to.
Yeah. But it's kind of, I don't know, man. I don't know about you, but I kind of dig road tripping. I dig that long drive to go skate. For me, I grew up doing it. I grew up getting on a bus. It took me 24 hours on a Greyhound bus to get to Kona, but I wasn't bitching because it was such a fucking adventure, man. Like, you show up at that park, you got 100 skaters there from around the country, and you're just stoked to unite with skaters.
Amen, brother.
It's all about the fucking road trip, man, and just appreciating what you got.
When I was a kid in the 80s, I was this group's grommet, like Jay and those guys. And my parents used to let me travel with them for some reason when I was like 12, 13, 14 years old. And I didn't know any better. Fucking truck with those guys. And it was crazy. It was so much fun, man. But the road trip is the best part. And Bunny and Jay and I went to Kona 40 when that happened a couple of years ago, and that was the best road trip I've been on in decades.
That was the best
Yeah,
ride
dude.
I ever went on.
It was so good.
And I
I
missed
think
out
Jason was sick. I think he was sick of us by the time we got home.
Yeah, I was sick of you an hour into it, but yeah, I missed out on the road trip thing because my parents were pretty strict about keeping me home, but they built me a giant vert ramp in the backyard, so that was super cool. But by the time my kid got into it, he and his buddies, I got to experience the road trip with them because I was driving them from Tampa Skate Park all the way up to Louisville and then on up to Kokomo, Indiana, and just stuff all over the East Coast. So I definitely got to experience the road trip with those kids, and it was just unbelievably groundbreaking for them. And I mean, they'll never forget those memories, and all good stuff.
Dude, what'd you think of that Kokomo elbow?
It's brutal. I just dropped in, and it's so whippy, you know, all the transitions, and I just like was a bucket of bruises when I got out of there. So
Me too.
Tell us a little bit about how you got into juice, what the background is on that, and how all that got started. It's been 25 years.
Yeah.
And I know they were having some trouble recently. I donated to that.
Best magazine
they're
ever.
back again.
You know, I've been living in New York City since like 94 or so. And I came here and I got a job. I had done stained glass in Charlotte, and then I did stained glass in Boston. And it was all because, dude, I just needed a job, and somehow I fell ass backwards into it. And by the time I got to New York, I was working for a studio, and my friend Andy Kessler lived in New York. And Kessler was, you know, he was a vert guy like me. We both rode Cherry Hill. We're both guys who rode big wheels, big boards. And we're just the vert guys in the New York City, which was all Zoo York, shut, all street, you know. So we kept pushing, and Kessler kept pushing, working with the Parks Department. And round about like 97, 98, he got a skate park built on 108th Street and Riverside Drive, metal ramps. And he did it with like inner city youth to get the park built. And it was really cool, man. We had our first vert ramp. And that's right when me and Kessler started Wounded Knee. The funny story is that this will lead up to Juice, but we were standing up on the ramp. We're like, man, we got to make a company with some big boards, but we need a kick-ass name. And we started looking at each other. We're riding this vert ramp. It's all metal. We're all dinged up. He's like, well, why don't we call it Wounded Knee? And when he said that, I'm like, dude, that's a heavy name. If we do it about Wounded Knee, it's got to be about Native American history. It's got to be about South Dakota and the Native American plight in this country. And, you know, we started with no money, and our fantasy was, in our skateboarder heads, someday maybe we can build skate parks for the kids. You know, we're just two knucklehead skateboarders just going, yeah, we'll do it. We'll figure it out. So that's how Wounded Knee started. And we were just me and Kessler pushing vert all the time, pull coping. And that's about the time where I met Terry Kraft from Juice, who just moved up to the city. And I forget how we all met, but we went up to her apartment and she just showed us the layout. And it had like some street skating on the cover. And I looked inside and I'm like, you know, selfishly, I'm like, man, we got to have vert in here. You got to do like underground vert stuff. And I knew in the back of my head, like, yeah, dude, but that's not going to pay the bills. Street skating pays the bills. I mean, I found out the hard way when I got kicked off of Alva and they turned it into New School. And, you know, that's how I lost my vert career. So I knew coming into this mag, you know, maybe the vert thing wasn't going to help pay their bills, but if I was going to do anything, it had to be at least about some underground vert. It had to be about the people who had the passion for this, like me, since the 70s and still have the love for it. I mean, the fact that we had a skate park, Kessler got a skate park built in New York City is so mind-blowing, and you have no idea what it would take with the real estate in New York City to get a skate park built there. Oh, we got it done. Yeah. So we just kept the vert going, and that's how I got into Juice. And from then on, you know, we did some stories at the 108 Riverside. We go down Jersey, and just from then on, I got them to focus on vert and pool coping. So it's all my fault. I'm sorry.
That's
Thank
when I
God.
learned about Juice, the first thing I did was get a subscription. You know,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anytime that they put out, like Terry over the years has put out a few feelers about, you know, if you don't buy the mag, if you don't buy the stuff, this magazine's not going to exist. So I've got a closet full of like Juice swag. Just every time something like that comes up, I'm like, yeah, I need another hoodie.
Yeah. Dude, that's rad because that's it, man. You know the deal. Skateboarders don't like to pay for shit, right? We want everything for free. We want our magazines for free. You know, we want to get flow to make ourselves feel great. But this is just such a grassroots thing.
Yeah, it is.
And in my heart, it's just I'm doing it for like the youth, for the history, giving respect to some legends, giving respect just to the scene, man. And it's not about we're not owned by any corporation, so we can do whatever the fuck we want, you know?
Yeah.
And I you know, that's just how I'd want to do a magazine. That's what I'd want to see if I was a little kid. Like when Thrasher first came out, it was just underground shit, like Mofo, Lowriders of the Boards. It was just like gnarly and just underground and duct tape, you know? It's like, that's what I want it to be.
No disrespect to Thrasher, but they definitely followed the times as the times changed.
Right.
I mean, there was a time I let my membership or my subscription last because it was Handrail Monthly. I got tired of it. There was nothing in that magazine from cover to cover for me. Even the indie ad on the second to last page had nothing for me. You know? So I let it lapse. I didn't have a subscription for years. I liked it in the Thatcher days.
Do you go hit that Pier 62?
Yeah.
Park there in New York?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that near you? Are you still living in New York or?
I live in Queens. I live like, you know,
cool.
Just a mile from actual Manhattan Island. So yeah, I go there, and right now we're getting Riverside Drive. We've pushed for it to now turn concrete. So California skate parks came in, and now they're building us a 11-foot deep, 9.5-foot vert pool, Peanut.
Yeah, that's
a bigger version of what we have.
That's exactly what we've got at our park, and I've seen at least 2 more Peanuts that he built that are exactly like ours, either smaller or bigger. I just skated. There's one down in Gainesville, Georgia that I skated that's 8 and 4, and then we've got ours that's 6 and 10.5. And it sounds like you guys are getting pretty much the same.
Yeah. I'm ready to do some carb grinds, man. And Riverside Drive is killer.
And it's not near as tight or as vert as the Peanut at friggin' Daytona. Yeah, Stone Edge. God, that thing was a monster, man.
Dude, did you ever see fucking Monty Nolder ride that fucking thing?
Yes, I did.
Ramp shaker, man. Ramp shaker.
Yeah, that pool was gnarly, man.
Yeah, it was.
The shallow end was way too steep.
Yeah.
The deep end was pretty nice, but the whole thing was really tight. But it was burly.
Yes.
Monty was there. It was crazy.
Did you ride with Groholski there?
No, never saw Groholski. I've never skated with Groholski.
He's the black ops of skateboarding. You'll never see him skate.
Yeah,
exactly.
I saw him in a couple of NSA contests, but you know, I was amateur day the 2 days before the pros came in, so all I got to do was be a kid and watch in the crowd.
Yeah, he sneaks in and skates and gets out.
Let's back up a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the Wounded Knee thing.
Okay.
I'd like to know your interest in the Native American culture, what that connection is. I mean, I've got a buddy who works a lot on reservations, and recently he met an 86-year-old woman who's never had running water here in America, which is screwed up. And anyway, so I'd just like to hear, you know, why you've got such a heart for that culture and why the rest of us don't, you know?
Well, my grandfather's grandmother was Lenni Lenape Indian, and all growing up, we'd hear about it, but we'd never really got any details about it. For us, it was just really casual, but we never really dug into our past history. Lenni Lenapes were up in Jersey and New York, so I always felt that connection. But other than, and also I've always was aware of the plight and just like the hypocrisy of America for what they did to their indigenous people. So, you know, what really sparked me as soon as Kessler said Wounded Knee, I was like, fuck it, man. We got to do this. I read Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, got myself back up to like real detailed history of how the Americans slaughtered the indigenous people and just took their lands. And, you know, man, you go out to Pine Ridge, and Pine Ridge, their sacred hills are the Black Hills. So that's where they would go and do ceremonies. And they had all that under a reservation pact. And of course, the government came in, they found out they had gold in the hills. So they renegotiated their pact and said, okay, you have to sign this treaty. If you don't, and in this treaty, we're going to, you know, restrict your lands even more. You don't have the Black Hills anymore. So you signed this treaty. And at this point, they weren't allowed off the reservation. They were surviving off of government rations. So they couldn't hunt. They couldn't follow the buffalo like they used to. So they said, okay, if you don't sign this, we're going to cut off your rations. So, you know, they basically had a gun to their head and they, you know, gave up their sacred land. So, you know, man, the more you read about it and the more you know about the suicide epidemic and the drug and alcohol abuse, you're like, all right, man, if I'm going to do this company, we got to figure out how we can help these kids. And finally, I was able to go out there. I made some connections. I met Arvel Looking Horse, who's the holder of the sacred pipe of the Lakota. And I told him what I was about using the company name. And I'm like, Arvel, you know, this is my vision. This is what I want to do. But if you think this is at all disrespectful and I shouldn't use this name to do what I'm doing, then I won't use it. And this was at a huge gathering in the Black Hills where people from around the world came for this gathering. And I had approached him right after he spoke to this huge throng of people. And after I said that, he just looked at me and he said, no, what you're doing is good. Our kids need that. Now I want you to go up there and talk to the people I just talked to. So I was like, oh shit. So I had to go up in front of like 500 people and tell them who I was and what I'm trying to do. And from there, we just beelined it right out to Pine Ridge Reservation. And it's about an hour and a half drive to the town of Pine Ridge. We drove out to Wounded Knee, gave out some boards, gave out some shirts. And from then on, it was just about making connections. Eventually, I met Walt Pooyer, who's from Pine Ridge, lives in Denver, heard what I was doing. He knew people on the reservation to help this thing get rolling. Then Jeff Ament called me at one point from Pearl Jam, and he said, hey, man, I heard what you and Kessler are doing. Can I help out? I'm like, all right, yeah. He's like, come on, let's build a park somewhere. So he was in, man. So he fucking came in, got vans to come in on it a little bit, and boom, he helped us get that first park built. Monk from Grindline, I met him, and I met him up in Rhode Island at one point. He's just like, I told him my vision, and Monk said, dude, you find a spot, I'll fly out there and build it for fucking free. Wow. And that, now he's serious. So what he fucking,
you guys built out there?
What's that?
How many parks have you guys built out there now?
So far, 2. Our next plan is in the village of Wounded Knee. We have one built at the Wounded Knee School in the Manderson, town of Manderson. We have one built in the town of Pine Ridge on the Pine Ridge Reservation. So Wounded Knee, we have a spot for it, but because of COVID, we've had to hold back. And It's a matter of like when it's going to be safe, you know, to get builders back out there.
Man,
well,
dude,
when that time comes, and if people want to get behind your vision and support what you do, where do they go?
Well, our nonprofit is strongholdsociety.org, and there's a donate button there, and woundedkneeskateboards.net. Like basically, man, I do my stained glass thing for my living, and I basically sell these boards so I can go back out to Pine Ridge and give them away. Like I'd be going out there 2 to 3 times a year. We throw events. I give away like from 50 to 100 boards per event. I call up Indy. Rhino at Indy would set me up. I call Bones. Bones actually did an MPS Wounded Knee wheel.
Cool.
Let me show it to you.
Oh, that's rad.
There it is.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we got Speed Lab to do us a wheel too.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like, you know, Jeff Ament from Pearl Jam, APA, MPS. He runs MPS and he's just like, yeah, Murf, let's do some collab stuff. So we do a collab board, and I'll show you that board.
Very cool.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. A guy like Jeff Ament, man, like I saw Pearl Jam. I remember moving from Texas to New York City. Moving out of Texas, I went and I saw Nirvana, and I thought that was a super rad gig. Get up to New York, go to the Limelight. I saw Pearl Jam live. Fucking one of the most incredible live shows I've ever seen. And to be working with the dude now, man, the guy grew up super poor in fucking Big Sandy, Montana. His dad, you know, they were all farmers, comes from a farmer family, built backyard ramps in his yard, fucking just skated. He's a fucking skateboarder, dude. So now,
like the East Coast.
Yeah, he's told, dude. I mean, he's in Big Sandy's in like the middle of nowhere,
Right.
and it's right near reservation. So, dude, Jeff has already built 25 plus skate parks out there. He's building them in
incredible. That's so
Dude.
cool.
I mean, he's building them in little towns. He's building them on reservation, and he's basically building a treasure trail of concrete. And he's doing this to inspire the kids. And he's fucking not doing it for ego either, dude. He's doing it because he's a fucking skateboarder like us, man. Yeah,
Because
I mean,
the more kids you get into it, I mean, sure, there's the, you know, especially in the 80s, it was like craziness and everything. But hey, you know, I know tons of skateboarders that are all doing great things now, like yourself, Murf. You know, it's like because we come from a small family and we're all together. And it doesn't matter what your race is, what your upbringing is, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're black, whether you're white, whatever it is.
Unless you push
matter.
Mongo.
Unless you push Mongo.
Don't sell that to Danforth. He'll get pissed.
Oh,
No, Jay, I agree with you. What I've tried to
It's a
explain
great
to
thing.
people
It's a
is,
great thing. It's awesome.
dude, old guys like us, like who grew up skateboarding, it's like this crazy cultural family. It's a global family, man, and it's so special. It's not like any sport. You know, this isn't basketball or football. These are like brothers and sisters around the world who just go skate to have fun. It's not even about the competition shit. It's all about that bonding, you know? So it's just the more kids we can get into it with that kind of positive mental attitude, dude, we're good to go.
Well, I mean, you know, perfect example, you know, Murf, I haven't talked to you in at least 15, 20 years. And here we are talking just like we haven't missed a beat.
No.
Everybody's gonna hang out here tonight. All right. We'll pass out in the flat. All right. Tonight. We got nothing better to do than to take 6 runs, drink a dozen